Most sectors of society have been affected by the internet, and some industries have even been transformed by it. The travel industry has been transformed by the ease with which customers can compare prices for flights and hotel rooms. The price transparency made possible by the internet has made the insurance industry more competitive and brought prices down. The music industry is still struggling to come to terms with the impact of digital downloads, both legal and illegal. And companies like Amazon have built up a significant market share of the retail book trade. Voice over IP technologies let people make international phone calls that cost orders of magnitude less than charges made by phone companies. Companies like eBay bring buyers and sellers together for online auctions. Many people use the terms Internet and World Wide Web interchangeably, but they're not the same. The Internet has been around a lot longer than the World Wide Web. The web is just one of the latest technologies built on top of the Internet infrastructure. The Internet started out as a research project for the US military in the 1960s and 70s. Different networks can have different layouts, or topologies we call them. Sometimes if one point of a network fails, large sections are cut off from each other. With this linear topology here, if one part fails, then the two remaining parts of the network are cut off. With this star topology, all of the information travels through the node at the center. If this fails, then the whole network is useless. The idea behind the research was to build a network that could withstand an attack by the Soviet Union, by designing it in such a way that the data had multiple ways to travel between points. That way, if one point failed, the rest of the network could keep going. So the network had no center, and no one point then was crucial to the operation of the entire network. That's one of the reasons why the internet is so difficult to control and to regulate today. It has no center, and shutting down any one part isn't enough to stop information from getting around. Now, this fledgling network later grew into today's internet. Over the years, a variety of different protocols were developed to operate over the internet. A protocol is a convention that different computers agree to use to make communication between them possible. Email allows people to send messages from their computer to someone else's. The message doesn't arrive instantly, but is relayed from one computer to another until it reaches its destination. If the user's computer isn't permanently connected to the internet, then the mail usually waits on an email server to be downloaded by the user's computer. An email might pass through many different computer systems as it makes its way from the sender to its destination, and so email isn't considered to be very secure. That's why people don't generally email sensitive information like credit card details. File Transfer Protocol, or FTP, as a way of copying a file from one computer to another computer. This usually requires a user account with a password on the destination computer, but it's possible to use public FTP servers where anyone can upload or download files. This was the main way that people shared files on the internet before the web was developed. In the past, you had to FTP using a command line interface. Now, although this is a bit cumbersome, it's still very common today. But you can also get applications that make it easier. These are called FTP clients. FTP establishes a direct connection between both computers, and so the transfer takes place immediately. But depending on the speed of the connection, it can actually be quite slow for large files. The Internet Relay Chat Protocol, or IRC, is a protocol that lets people send short text messages to each other in real time. This is often called instant messaging or chatting. It was originally designed for many-to-many conversations, but it can be used for one-to-one conversations too. There are quite a few variations now on this protocol, and a number of different messaging applications are out there. Microsoft Messenger and Yahoo Messenger are very popular. Many people use these applications to join large global conversations among people with similar interests, in virtual chat rooms. Again, IRC is not secure and so should never be used for sensitive information. More importantly, however, you can never be sure who you're talking to in a chat room. People might not be what they seem. Peer-to-peer protocols allow two computers to connect directly to each other without going through a central server. Once connected, then, the computers can exchange files with each other. Peer-to-peer technologies form the backbone of most illegal music swapping systems. And apart from being illegal, these networks are risky because they might expose some contents of your computer that you prefer to keep private. Also, you can never really know what you're downloading, and so you could be exposing your computer to all sorts of virus and security problems. So the World Wide Web then is just one aspect of the Internet, but of course it's probably the most important now. The World Wide Web first started in 1990 by a researcher at the European Organisation for Nuclear Research, that's known as CERN. He developed the web as a way of disseminating research from CERN more efficiently. By the mid-1990s, the web had gone mainstream though. It's important to understand what happens when you enter a website address into a browser. Let's take a quick look at how a web page gets from the web server to the user's web browser. The web address a user types into a browser or clicks on is more correctly known as the Universal Resource Locator, or URL. URLs specify Internet-based content using a standard format. Web page URLs begin with HTTP, which stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Computers on the Internet are referenced by their IP addresses. These are long numbers punctuated with dots. In order to make life easier for humans, machines can also be given names. The assignment of names is handled on a country-by-country basis for most top-level domains. So who gets which .ie domain is controlled by an organisation in Ireland, and who gets which .fr domains is organised in France. Other domain names like .com, .info, .biz are not country-specific, but are assigned in the US. Now, the first thing that needs to happen for the browser to get the page is that it has to find the IP address of the web server. Special computers on the Internet called domain name servers act like giant phone books to provide IP addresses. Once the browser knows the IP address of the web server it wants, it can connect to it. So the browser requests the desired page from the web server. It's very common for a browser to provide only a partial path rather than a specific file. In these cases, the server has a default file for each subdirectory that it serves up if only the subdirectory is specified. This file is usually called index.html, but for some servers it's home.html. Either way, the web server knows which file the browser is requesting and sends it. The content of the web page is described in Hypertext Markup Language, or HTML. When the browser receives the HTML file, it will immediately start to lay out the page. If the web page contains images, then these will in fact be additional files stored on the server. So for each image reference encountered in the HTML file, the browser has to go back to the server and request the image file. If at any stage the browser requests a file that the server doesn't have, then the server will provide an error message. It's usually fairly obvious when the browser requests a HTML file that isn't available. But if a requested image isn't available, the impact will be less noticeable. Any links on the page are usually obvious, and clicking on these will cause the browser to request another web page and start the process all over again. It turns out that different browsers work differently, and sometimes the same page can look slightly different depending on the browser used. Now, there are several browsers on the market, and their market share has actually changed a lot over the years. The competition for market share has been quite fierce at times, and that's sometimes known as the browser wars. In this course, we'll be learning how to build websites, and we'll look at the special languages that are used to describe website content and behavior. We'll also look at some applications that help us to build websites.